At noon on Kharon, the sky was mostly darkness, punctured by a brilliant ring. The black hole the colonists named Umbra sat like an absence at the heart of everything, devouring angles. Around it, background stars smeared into luminous arcs, duplicated by lensing until constellations became ladders. The accretion disk slept today, a faint ash-blue scratch along the horizon, but sometimes it flared and turned noon into a lethal Sophia Day the colony, called Blue Noon. Shadows went knife-sharp. Radios crackled. Children memorized the routes to shelters. Everyone carried blackglass shades and stories about the last time here. Laila Chen tightened her tether and checked anchored 13's humming coils. The tower rose like frozen lightning from the canyon floor, a kilometer of carbon lattice and buried superconductor, binding the invisible tugboats that nudged the planet's path through Umbra's well. Ion Grant's voice climbed in her ear, easy and dry. "Try not to stare too long," he said. "The big picture steals small hands." Tide ranges like him patrolled the bent sky, skirting the photon ring where light looped. "Bring me a star," she told him. The old joke. He laughed, promising supper and a better horizon for me. She sealed the panel and ducked into the anchor's skull, where black glass veins pulsed along obsidian walls, drinking blue and spitting waste heat. The room hummed like a hive. Her come chimed. Mina's face appeared, jittering through the crowd. Her sister worked at the clock, the plateau beacon that beat out standard time and tracked slippage between valleys and ridges. On Kharon, time crawled and sprinted depending on altitude and gradient. Wires sagged differently in schedules than in space. The clock kept the map sane, so people could meet, trade, love, argue, and not lose each other entirely out here. Mina's smile looked bright and wrong. "We're out of envelope by 40 microseconds on the eastern anchors," she said. "And the Oracle missed the flare by 8 seconds this morning." The Oracle never missed. The neutrino whisper had guided the first settlers, speaking clean predictions from the unthinkable inside. If the triangulations were true, it told them when Umbra would spit, which orbits diverged, which bridges should be bolted twice. It never explained, it simply sung. Now lenskeepers saw rippling that looked early. No stand-down order yet. Low Canton's crews were still open sky, trusting the window to hold. The coal sliced off, not slurred by gravity, but cut like a wire. Anchor Thetan screamed. Noon went blue. Blackglass thickened from the walls, curtains swallowing the room until the consoles glowed like cave lichen. Outside, Umbra's rim burned like a god's wound, the photon ring bright as a brand. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the disk convulsed and spat. Laila pushed power to the coil network, feeling the anchors and invisible tugs whisper tiny adjustments, stealing energy, nudging the planet's path. The storm dragged a finger across the strings of the world, then silence, and receding dark in her lungs. The black glass thinned. The sky returned to its habitual wrongness. Stars warped into spears around a hole that wasn't. Mina reappeared, paler. We were wrong by 9 seconds. 37 dead in the low cantons. They were putting the children under the shades. "I don't know why it missed." Laila said sorry, uselessly, then saw Anchor 13's diagnostics flash. A coil sequence had executed early, from her authentication, originating on the tether uplink. The mesh log carried a negative offset. Received before sent. Uplink 8. Tide Ranger Karuder. Impossible, because the clock enforced order. She pinged Ion, got echoes only. She locked out any command bearing her signature and threw a council ping. Politics arrived quickly on Kharon, because time never did. The colony had learned to live with Dilation's petty. Lovers signed slope pacts and broke them. Parents went down to work and came back older or younger in wrong proportions to their children. The ring of anchors, the tugs, the blackglass domes, the clog. All of it kept people pointed at the same idea of now. Without that fragile truce, 1,000 little forevers would tear them apart too soon. The council bloomed on her wall in a lace of faces. Governor Suran's voice was sour. "Engineer Chun, we see a premature coil adjustment on 13 during the flare." She pushed the logs and mesh traces into their channel. The keeper's chair, Ediorun, frowned. "Nothing breaks causal order," she said. The Chronoweb drops paradox. Laila pointed at the offset and the uplink corridor. Ion is missing. Mina cut in, voice tight. We just received a core packet from the Oracle. It says, do not correct the orbit. 2 cycles, idle, predicted inward drift over 179 days. Silence ran through the council like cold. Jordan's mouth thinned. The anchors exist to correct, she said. The Oracle has never forbidden our purpose. Soren shook his head. We choose the risk we can justify. Governor's voice insisted. Old Derin, keep families alive, under domes that work. Laila said, I want to go up. Ion's transponder scattered near the ring. If he's skating the lens, he may be seeing our error, Soren said. No launches until consensus. We do not waste a ranger for a ghost. Laila cut the channel before he could make it an order on record. Outside, the west wind tasted of iron and dust. The ocean glittered like a cliff far off. Tides shouldering upward into walls under gradients no moon could explain. People built towns in stone leas, behind canyons, under blackglass domes that could swallow a noon. At the ranger pad, guards stared at the council order. Tint, at Laila S. emergency seal. We lost a ranger, she said, and that was enough. The skiff was a graphite crescent with a hungry hum. Harness bit her ribs. The sky bent as she climbed. Gravity felt less like weight, more like a thought tilted sideways. Her cum clicked. Mina again. Soft. I can't stop you. Listen. A burst arrived, stitched with brutal error correction. The Oracle's language encoded by keepers. It contained 3 words, checksum clean. Follow your signal, Mina said. I shouldn't send this. They'll call it betrayal of the text. But you deserve to know what it wants, or seems to want. If it came from within, if it isn't a ring reflection, then be careful of yourself. Near the photon ring, light loops. Sodo. Mistakes. If you see anything that looks like you, come back even faster. Promise me you will. The ranger's oldest radar pinged. A child's toy tapping the dark. The photon ring swelled. A blade of fire where light changed its mind. Her display showed a target both impossibly distant and right there, an echo trapped in the curve. The transponder code was ions. For 1 heartbeat. The cockpit window held a reflection in his hull that looked like her own face, stretched thin by bent geometry. The skiff purred as if to say, catch it. Then, Laila rolled into the arc and followed the impossible signal, chasing a message that might have come from her future anyway. The photon ring was a blade of fire, and Laila flew along its edge like a moth shadow pressed flat against a lantern. Umbra's rim turned every movement into a question with 5 answers. The skiff's hull sang as it flexed against gradients, superconducting loops, drinking field lines, and spitting them sideways. A gravity sail trimmed to the impossible. Ion's echo hung ahead of her. Sometimes a crisp crescent, sometimes a stretched smear. The radar said he was near and far, and also nowhere, because the ring did that to signals. Light there changed its mind. So did certainty. She pulsed the skiff's micro-thrusters to match a velocity that kept slipping out from under her feet. Grant! Respond! She said on the old proximity band, the one even children's toys could hear. Nothing. Then something like breath, like cloth brushing a mic. Hold course, Ion said, thin as spider silk. The curve gives you back what you lose if you don't fight it. Copy! She trimmed again, eyes skimming the stabilizer graphs. A parameter called Shinshia ticked Amba, a ranger joke given math, the measure of how fast the view would move, even if she stood still. At the photon ring, shine moved faster than ships. Do you have me? Ion asked. I have a dozen of you. Choose the dimmest, he said. That's the one the universe regrets. It's closer. She smiled despite the taste of copper in her mouth, and slid her crosshairs to a version of Ion that flickered as if lit by a dying idea. The skiff's lock chirped. The distance was 20 meters and thousands, and when she reached with the manipulator, she touched hull. Magnet pads clamped. The skiffs dipped together, oscillating in the lens like coins wobbling at the end of a spin. She saw for an instant an entire chandelier of other Lailas making the same choice, each at a slightly different angle of regret. "Hey, engineer," Ion said. "Breathless now. Real. Fancy meeting you at the edge of nothing. You owe me, Sapa, owe me a better horizon." His canopy glass was crazed with hairline cracks. Blackglass paint cooked along the edges. Time had painted him wrong. She could see it in the way his pupils tracked, just a touch slow. He had been running slower than the ground long enough for his brain to notice. "Can you boost?" she asked. "My field coils are hot. I've got one shot at a shove. After that, I'm driftwood. We push together on my mark." She glanced at the ripped star. "On your side, choose the dimmest me." He laughed once, because humor was the last pressure valve Rangers let themselves have, then said, "Ready?" She counted down, and 2 crescents spat light. Their combined shove moved them sideways into a slightly saner corridor. The shine sheer dipped toward green. Laila let herself breathe. "Lost your, transponder," she said. "I lost a lot. I also found something." He turned his head, carefully, as if his neck had become a negotiation. "Laila, I got a command through my uplink 12 seconds before you sent it. Your signature, your sequence, it made me adjust. If I hadn't, I think I would have hit the ring and come apart like a song." She felt the cold idea move through her. "I saw a command like that, too, at Anchor 13. "Then we are in the same bad dream." He drew a breath. "Mina called you." "She did. Oracle says, don't correct. Council says, hold the ring." "I've been looking at the arcs," he said. "There's a ghost ring. Dimmer, outside the bright. Not stars. Neutrinos. Maybe. We don't see them. But the skiff's old radiation counter spit when we cross it. Something's whispering across the edge." "Follow your signal," Laila said. He turned to her, surprised. "How do you know that?" "Because it told me." Ion winced, cracked a grin. "Then we're all prophets today." Below them, between ragged clouds, Kharons, canyons, drew mosaics. Towns huddled under black glass domes, like mussels in rocky pools. In the low cantons, a funeral would be on, 37 names pulled out of the blue noon. Laila looked away from that horizon and into another, because grief was a gravity more dangerous than Umbra's. At the clock, Mina watched the courtyard fill. People came for answers, and shade, and to stand near someone who claimed to know. The keepers had hung their white flags to signal a reading. The council sent envoys with black tabs pinned to their collars. A woman held a handwritten sign. "Do not correct." A man next to her held another. "Hold the ring." They argued softly, because Kharon had taught its children that shouting wastes breath. Mina's console chimed with a triangulation update. The Oracle's last packet showed a parallax shift that, on a map flattened for human eyes, put its source behind Umbra's throat. But the corrective notes, the ones the keepers never published, said those triangles bent there. Light paths so curved could project virtual images inside the horizon from emitters outside it. The model that accounted for scattering in the disk and frame, dragging in the well-placed the whisper on a shell near the photon ring, a place a fool could fly to. "Like my sister," Mina thought, and rubbed her eyes. Edda stood on the clock's steps and let the crowd's murmurs fold around her. "The Oracle has never made a moral choice for us," she said. "It tells us tides and flares. Today it tells us a command. We must decide if we obey." She looked at Governor Soren without flinching. "We decide knowing thousands live under our choices," Soren said. "If we idle the anchors, we invite drift into hotter tides. If we hold the ring against new information, we invite another blue noon. This is not piety. This is engineering." Mina pinged Laila with restricted bandwidth. The channel crackled, then steadied as Laila's skiff stumbled into a quieter corridor. "I triangulated again," Mina said. "The Oracle's source is not in the impossible. It sits near the ring. A virtual image misled the first settlers. The keepers simplified. If you can touch that shell, you can talk to it. You could be it." Laila nodded slowly. Ion got a message from me before I sent it. You might be able to send yours now, Mina said, if you can force a path that makes the mesh assign its timestamp retrograde. The web orders, by the clock's gradients, the ring scrambles them. If you ride the right loop, you can make your signal look early without actually breaking causality. It's a cheat on geometry, not time. You've been thinking about this. I've been terrified about it, Mina said. We can throttle the mesh to pass a signed packet along the Ranger corridor. The way Ion got yours, you'd have to run your token from the skiff, and you'd have to match the path that you already took. Laila. Because that's what made it possible. Follow your signal, Laila murmured. Copy. Ion was listening, he said. If we can fake time, we can be the thing we've been worshipping. Guiding, not worshipping, Mina said, but her voice had the thinnest tremor, the crack of a belief receding. Soren's voice broke in on a public channel. Anchors will hold. I repeat, anchors will hold. The Oracle has no authority to command. Rangers, report status. No unnecessary launches. Already launched, Ion said cheerfully, and Laila loved him a little for saying it that way when each breath might be his last. Engineer Chen Soren continued, as if he could make his words a net. You will maintain Anchor 13 schedule. Laila muted him and brought up the skiff's cryptography. Her token mantle recognized her biometrics and unrolled her key. Her hand shook. She nested a coil vector override, tiny and precise, the one that had almost tipped their orbit 12 seconds too early. She apologized to the part of herself that still believed in clean lines through time. Ion, she said, I need to couple to your uplink. We'll use the Ranger corridor as our guide. Mina will do the ugly math on the clock. Ion flipped a cover and let vacuum reach a port. Take what you need, he said. Bring me a star. They linked the matkame, ugly and brilliant. Mina's touch in every correction. Laila felt the skiff lean into a groove in geometry that only existed because she was already leaning into it. She had the queasy sense of stepping into a footprint and watching it appear under her weight. On my mark, Mina said. Pulse your packet and trim 2 degrees negative on the curve. The mesh will believe you are downslope from yourself, and it will sort by that lie. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Laila sent her own past a coil command with her signature. The skiff's belly thrummed. Around them, the arcs sparked like struck flint. The packet vanished into the ring's hungry mouth, and the mesh somewhere groundward chose an order that put receiving ahead of sending. Done, Mina said, voice small. Ion watched Laila with wonder. We are our own miracles, he said. Don't get holy on me, Laila said, but she couldn't stop her mouth from trembling. Her console blinked. The mesh chimed back the history she had always had. A premature coil adjustment. Caught in time, the loop closed like a muscle around a bone. And the Oracle? Laila asked. Mina's screen scrolled. A new packet bloomed, this time with a nuance that made Mina's scalp prickle. The syntax held a joke no one outside Kharon would know. A Ranger aphorism about Shinshir. The Keeper's checksum passed anyway. It says, again and again. Mina whispered, do not correct. 2 cycles idle, Laila said. We'll drift. Bring us closer to the throat, Mina said. There's a window there. If we drift now, in 179 days, the ring and the arcs and the planet line up in a way they never have. The model says a transfer could carry the colony out of Umbra's worst tides onto a higher shell. It is narrow, and it is lethal if we miss. Council will try, Mina said, but public trust just moved. The Oracle's voice sounds like us. That will cut both ways. Ion's skiff groaned, a long unhappy sound, like ice underfoot on a warm day. I can't ride the corridor back with you, he said. My coils are past red. If I push, I spit my hull. I can tow, Laila said, knowing she couldn't. You can't. Physics wins the argument. Engineer. He grinned with too many teeth. You got me out of the worst loop. That's enough. Don't do this. Bring me a star. A side Eigin. and unlatched the magnet pads. The skiffs sheared apart gently, as if embarrassed to admit they had ever touched. He angled into a thinner arc, one that held more dark between its lights. "Ion," Laila said. "Tell my sister I kept my slope pact," he said. "Tell her I took the long way around so I'd come back the right age. That'll make her laugh." Then the ring took him, not in a swallow, not in a drama, but in a spreading of options so fine they looked like dust. His transponder became a set of statistical questions. The old proximity band fell quiet. Laila set her skiff toward Kharon, where politics and grief and math waited, and where someone had to convince a world to idle the anchors and step into a window only a whisper could see. She made herself not look back. She flew by the least bright version of herself until she was the only one left. Drift rewrote Kharon says. The anchors idled. The tugs slept like coiled cats. People redrew slope pacts and wedding schedules. The clock published age maps that looked like weather. In wind-shadow towns, bells for the low cantons dead hung under blackglass ribs and rang at dusk. Children learned to count blue noon's seconds. Markets shifted 2 nights gentler than noon. Under domes, protest flags read "Do not correct or hold the ring," and sometimes both stitched together. Laila kept to anchor 13 and Mina to the clock, and between them a thread of voice hummed with jokes. At the council, Laila and Mina showed what they had done near the photon ring, a geometry cheat that made a packet look early without breaking causality. "The oracle is a halo of our echoes," Mina said. "Light and neutrinos loop. Some paths arrive early, some late. Filtered for self-consistency. They speak at a Jordan, did not deny it." "We curated," she said. "We kept what fit the world that stayed." Governor Soren rubbed his temple. "And you ask me to trust a chorus. We're singing." Laila laid out the window. 179 days to a rare alignment. Pulses timed to shape tides. A Pendros pickpocket to a slightly higher shell. 1 try. No full-scale test. By 1 vote, the council agreed to drift. Protesters folded their signs into prayer flags. 3 weeks later, Anchor 9 tried to wake itself. The routine bore Laila's key. The offset lacked the ring's telltale bend. "Local spoof," Mina said, from the clock. Security hauled in Kess, a junior keeper whose hands only shook when still. "Fall in his obedience," it told Jordan, who stared like betrayal had a familiar face. Soren didn't gloat. Laila locked every anchor behind multi-layer salts and sent her token into quarantine. "Someone wanted the window to collapse," Set told Mina, "or to make us prove we mean it." Drift 8 months. Umbra's disk flared twice. Blackglass drank until walls smelled scorched. Shade shelters flexed like lungs. The council banned open sky festivals. People held them under domes bright with arc lamps, to teach their children that joy wasn't forbidden by physics. Laila slept at 13, and carved an ugly crescent for Ion into the service hatch. Mina sent a daily shine sheer forecast, and poems about time written backward. Their father kept tightening already tight pipes, and fed them soup heavy with algae oil when they met midslope, all 3 measuring their years against one another like careful tailors. On day 178, the oracle sang 3 packets in a row. The first said, "Do not correct." The second, "Do not correct until T the third. Correct at T+1, checksums passed." The second wore one of Mina's swears. The third moved with a ranger's cadence. Jordan stood still as a winter tree. "This is the chorus without curation," she said. "Multiple loops, all true until they aren't." Soren called an emergency session and said, "We idle until T if the ring's aligned to model. We correct to T+1. Night bled into a blue morning. The arcs swept into a rare symmetry. The photon ring sharpened like a blade. Tugs lit in triads until the sky showed a faint crown of diamonds. Angas flexed the planet's field coils to push a moving tide bulge toward an unseen current. In the low cantons, bell ropes waited in ringers' hands. Laila stood in 13's skull, breath tasting of charcoal as blackglass thickened and shine sheer climbed. Manah's link held steady, a silver thread between rooms. Mark T in 6. Mina said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. T. The world groaned in an anchor's language. A packet tore through the mesh like cold iron. Correct now. It carried a private joke Laila had once told Ion, about a star being a rock that learned to say yes, and the path wore the photon ring smear. "Do we obey?" Soren asked on the open channel. Mina didn't answer. Jordan whispered a prayer that might have been a memory. Laila watched the arcs and understood. The commands braided. Danak, correct, had opened the corridor. Correct now would let them ride it. "Both are true," she said. She bled a microsecond into 13's valves. Across Kharon anchors felt the tilt. The tugs answered with a pulse that carved an eddy in frame drag space. The planet slid, balanced on precision and nerve. Heat climbed. Blackglass screamed. Mina shouted numbers Laila couldn't hear, and Laila followed anyway, trusting the skitter of her fingers more than fear. Oceans shouldered up like glass, and then settled. Bells rang without hands. For a breath that lasted a long time, Kharon skated. They landed higher. Not much, but enough that dust lifted easier and kitchens felt a fraction lighter. The photon ring softened, from blade to ribbon. The disk glowed sullen, not murderous. In the clock's yard, no one cheered. They wept, like people who had held a wall too long. Jordan touched a tower's blackglass and said, "We kept faith with a thing we finally understand, or understand enough." Soren climbed 13's steps and sat beside Laila like a man who had earned the right to be ordinary. "If you ask whether I believed," he said, "I believed in you." Laila closed her eyes. "Now what?" "Now we make a habit of windows," Soren said. "We still live by a mouth that eats angles. We teach our children about braids." He left her sitting on the metal steps, listening to the new quiet. Later, she and Mina ate soup at their father's table. They measured their years against each other and laughed when the sums didn't quite match. A day later, Laila took a ranger skiff to the ring. She told no one but Mina. She coasted along the corridor her past had left, neutrino counters ticking like rain. On the oldest mesh band, she sent the 3 words that had once saved her. "Follow your signal," she added another. "Correct now." Echoes came back early and late, her voice braided with other Laila. "Under that, thin as spider silt. A breath. Bring me a star," Ion said. Almost a temperature. She closed her eyes and answered, "I brought you one the size of a world." The ring held its blade, its ribbon, and all its choices. Laila pivoted homeward into a sky where bells were being put away, protest flags cut into blankets for new babies, and the clock ticked with patience that felt earned. Behind her, the oracle sung a voice built from echoes, telling a future people still had to choose. Back at the clock, Jordan convened the keepers and opened the archive. Contradictions and all. Children crowded the steps, listening to a lesson that began, "Once we thought the oracle never aired." Soren commissioned more tugs and thicker blackglass, and set quotas that bent 2 moons that didn't exist. Mina replumed the beacon, so gradients no longer put convenience over truth. Families rewrote slope pacts, promising not just to meet, but to forgive when time went strange. Limitations remained. Coils cramped, domes heat-soaked, math fragile at the edges. But Kharon had learned a new habetadu braid risk and hope, and to sing back together.